A little while ago, I made a video where I laid out all of my thoughts on the second season of the Total Genre reboot, and in that video, I mentioned how I had a lot to say about one particular character, but I'd saved a lot of it for a dedicated video instead of putting it all into that video. And that's what this video is, the video about Caleb, a character that I have so much to talk about because of how I just don't like him or really just understand him. He's truly a weird character, so let's just dive right in. There isn't really much to say when it comes to Caleb in the first season of the reboot. He was just like a typical pretty boy jock who knew how good looking he was, and then he just got voted off because Bowie wanted him out. That was it really. Everybody was immediately in love with him, but he was too big of a threat and he was gone. To me, at least, with the second season of the reboot coming, I assumed we'd be getting more of Caleb, and I was expecting more of a Justin-esque trajectory where he becomes more villainous and vengeful, and that adds some more interest and depth to his character, but that's not really what we got at all, at least at first. The second season is where we really get introduced to Caleb and his 15 different personalities. Seriously, this guy switches up how he thinks all the damn time and I never quite understand it, but let's not get too carried away right now. The whole thing with Caleb in this second season is redemption. He wants to redeem himself after embarrassingly being the first person voted out. I mean, yeah, he's good looking, strong, tall, seemingly perfect in a shallow viewpoint, but so what if he was first boot? He deserved it for bringing nothing else to the show in my opinion, but now he's going to bring it by making sure he gets further this time, and that does make sense. You know what doesn't make sense though? All of these confessionals he gets during the schoolyard pick for the teams. Like, why was this necessary? Did we need all of these confessionals where Caleb gets increasingly annoyed about how others have been chosen over him? Like, all of this would make sense if Caleb actually had it out for all of his teammates and the team captain and became a legit villain. But none of this matters after the fact, and he's just happy to be on a team finally. Like, okay, yeah, you might be strong or whatever, but you were the first boot. Others will be chosen over you. But this is also the beginning of Caleb flirting with Priya. No, sorry, manipulating her. No, wait, sorry. It's kind of both. I mean, Caleb's whole thing is that he needs to make alliances if he wants to go further in the game, and his solution to do this is to only try to make an alliance with Priya. This is the season's main story basically, and I mean, it makes perfect sense to want to make an alliance with the previous season's winner. Caleb lays that out a lot, that he wants this alliance with Priya to work because she won, but also like, I think it would have been great to see Caleb trying to make alliances with other people as well. To me, that'd make things way more fun, and it was always just confusing to me why Caleb never, ever thought to seek out an alliance with anybody else at all. Emma, who was also fawning over Caleb all the time, is literally right there to form an alliance with, especially since he was just using his looks to win over Priya. He could have done the exact same thing with Emma. I still believe in an explored Emma and Caleb dynamic, but oh well. So for the next few episodes, Caleb is continuing his path to the end by flirting with Priya and making sure she is aligned with him because of his looks. Priya ends up gaining legit feelings for him, and before you know it, Z now knows about Priya's crush. Episode 6 is when the teams emerge, but it's also the episode when things get serious for Caleb and Priya. So Caleb is supposed to be this perfect human being who now we understand is not just strong and pretty, but also intelligent. So intelligent that he spills his entire game plan to Z, and yes, he spills all of it. The fact that he's getting Priya on his side, and they're going to the end together, and their alliance will be strong, Caleb must think that telling Z, who's not exactly that smart at all, won't do any harm, but it also makes no sense to me why Caleb would just tell Z all of that, unless they had their own alliance all this time and we just never saw it. It's clearly done just so that Z knows both sides of the story, and it makes him guilty for knowing and not saying anything, but I don't know, it all just seems kind of illogical that someone as smart as Caleb would just tell Z all of this on a whim. Z even tells Damien about this, and Damien just sums it up to flirting. This doesn't really sway Z's perception because of what Caleb told him in private, but like, the fact that Caleb and Priya weren't targeted by everyone from the jump is a miracle, honestly. Everyone knows they're flirting and are always together, even to the point where Priya and Caleb just completely ditch the challenge after they get eliminated, and the cast doesn't even care or notice. Caleb and Priya decide to ditch everybody and look for the idol. They don't find it, but they do begin to build a deeper connection with each other as they learn more about each other's lives. Things aren't so shallow between them now, and it gets to a point where Priya blurts out that she likes him, but he didn't hear her. I don't really buy it, but that's besides the point. Caleb reveals a lot about himself, such as how his parents always made him do an insane amount of homework and how he has ambitions of wanting to be an environmental engineer that golfs instead of being a space engineer. Like, okay, you're still going to be an engineer though? But hey, at least we've learned some stuff about Caleb besides the superficial details. The issue is that Caleb is still pretty shallow as a character. This kind of stuff feels more like stuff for Priya to take notice of so she can have deeper feelings for Caleb than it does for us to get to know Caleb more as a character. Caleb and Priya's alliance, relationship, flirtmance, whatever it's called at this point, blows up in episode 8 when Z spills everything about everyone. And I do mean everyone, but the important thing is that he exposes Caleb for being a completely manipulating son of a you-know-what. He never liked Priya and has just been using her this entire time. Also of note, this entire episode is Priya and Caleb just trying to kiss like 50 times before they finally do. So yeah, Caleb was exposed for being the slimeball he is, and that turned the entire remaining cast against him. That would have made perfect sense for him to be eliminated, but he wasn't. Instead, Z left, and I guess it was because he told everybody's secrets, but everyone also just hated Caleb, so it's kind of a mystery to me how he even stayed. I mean, he obviously stayed because the plot between him and Priya needed to keep going, as it couldn't end on that note, as this is also when Caleb was starting to develop real feelings for her. But the hatred for Caleb continues into the next episode. They all hate him, and Caleb knows he needs to win the challenge if he wants to stick around. You probably know how that ended up, but Caleb in this challenge is just... I'm not sure what the right word for it is, but some of this stuff was just so weird to me. Caleb somehow manages to drag along this entire yacht. It is a cartoon, but like, come on now. Caleb is also like the corniest dude ever. He named his abs Ripped and Shredder, which just sounds like a jobber tag team in WCW in 1998. Caleb also just defies all levels of physics. Forget about just dragging along an entire yacht. How about punching an entire yacht with his bare hands to take it all apart? He's literally punching through all of the yacht like it's made of pillows. How he's not in any sort of pain whatsoever is crazy, but what's more important here is that Priya seemingly can't take her eyes off of him. Yeah, that's right. We're back to being shallow because Caleb has nothing else to offer besides his strength and physique. In the next episode, Caleb tries telling Priya he loves her, or likes her, whatever the L word here is exactly, but I mean, isn't love a little too strong for what they've had going on? It is young love though, so who knows. But he doesn't get the chance to because he struggles to say it despite being completely confident in saying the absolute worst flirting lines to Priya many times before. But we'll get there. This is also when Caleb and Priya go along with the things Julia told them to do, which again is funny to me because everyone knows Julia is a complete schemer, and yet the two most book smart people here totally fall for it and go along with all of Julia's advice. They deserved everything that was coming to them, but this actually ended up working against Julia because Priya and Caleb got back together. After Julia gets exposed, Caleb gets right back in his corny bag and tells Priya a lot of things he loves about her, and they are probably the worst things you've ever heard. I won't repeat them as frankly I'm a little disgusted by what Caleb said he loved about Priya, but it somehow worked. There was also this thing where Caleb told Priya she should try finding some burgers in her hair after she found a french fry in there. The guy is just constantly waffling, trying to sound romantic while just saying the weirdest stuff possible. Basically what I'm saying is that Caleb was not cooking whatsoever, but I mean, he did get Priya back. Or well, kind of. After all this time where I was waiting for Caleb to start an alliance with someone else besides Priya because that's what I thought he was going to do, he finally did this when he was forced into a deal by Julia that she'd save him and he'd vote however she wanted him to. And I actually liked this deal between them because Caleb finally had to interact with someone other than Priya, and Julia continued being the iconic queen she is. Priya also hates this because to her it seems like Caleb will still do anything it takes to win, and I mean, that's a fair assessment, although he only tried aligning with her for the whole season, so it's not like he did much else to try to win. But anyways, you know who else doesn't like Caleb and wants to get in on the roasting? Chef Hatchet. God, I love that guy. He legit tells Caleb to his face that he has the wooing skills of a dumpster fire. This is hilarious to me because I feel like Caleb is supposed to be presented positively when it comes to how he's been able to win Priya back and how he's complimented her and really tried his best to make things right, but Chef stomps on all of that and blatantly says that Caleb sucks at flirting and being romantic. I mean, I wouldn't disagree with that statement either, and Chef put it perfectly. I just love when the hosts get in on this kind of stuff too because of their more omniscient point of view. And trust me, Chris also gets in on the action of roasting Caleb. That actually happens in the episode that's about all of the contestants' fears. Caleb's fears are clowns and snakes. A lot of people have those fears, so fair enough. But that's not quite that interesting to Chris. Chris straight up just tells Caleb that his fears are basic and that he is basic. I think we need one of those Comedy Central roasts, but just for Caleb. But it's hilarious because it's literally true. Caleb is super basic as a character, and despite all of the romantic and manipulative failures he's endured, none of it has really enhanced him as a character or made him more interesting. It's made the story of the season more interesting maybe, but I don't look back at all these events and think that Caleb has gotten any deeper as a character. But the writers do their best with trying to flesh out Caleb's character to the point where now his character has actually completely changed from how it was in the beginning. So Priya wants Caleb to get out of this agreement he has with Julia and to just betray her. It's not like Julia wouldn't do the same thing first, but for some reason Caleb has a moral compass about this. For some reason, he just can't go back on his word. He's all about loyalty and sticking to what he said he'd do because he wouldn't ever break a promise or someone's trust. Like, where did all of this even come from? This is the same guy that tried manipulating a girl he knew had a crush on him just so he could get to the end and win, but now all of a sudden he cares so much about loyalty and not breaking his word? What? I guess you could argue that after getting with Priya that he had an epiphany about how he shouldn't be as manipulative as he was, but the way this is all set up is if Caleb has always been about his word for his entire life. Like, you can't convince me that he isn't a slimeball because he was just one several episodes ago. So it's hard for me to fully believe that Caleb would now be so against going back on his word and going against Julia. I just don't believe it. But anyways, Priya gets voted out and Caleb is down in the final three with Julia and Wayne. This was what the writers wanted though. They obviously invested a lot into Caleb as a character and really wanted this redemption arc to go well. He was first boot last season and here he is in the finale in the second season, so he's been able to completely turn his fortunes around and now he could potentially go from first boot to winner. So yeah, the finale. Caleb and Julia are definitely the obvious favorites here as they each have been dominant in the challenges. They're both smart as well, although there's a bit of a debate on that one. For the finale, all of the past eliminated contestants except Scary Girl had to pick one of the finalists to assist in their quest to be the winner. Julia only had MK, Wayne got Axel and the boys, and Caleb got his girlfriend Priya, Millie, Damien, Emma, and Nichelle. The only problem with this team is nobody on his team is actually there to help him win. They don't give a crap about him at all. They only care about seeing Julia lose. That is their ultimate goal here. And yes, even for Priya, she just wants to see Julia lose. If this doesn't say enough about Caleb's quote-unquote character, then I'm not sure what does. How is your own girlfriend not even fully supporting you and hoping you win? And she's not even exactly that supportive in a loving way in this finale either. Even when Caleb is struggling, she just tells him to suck it up and do more so he can beat Julia. I get it though because of the competitive environment, but I already went over how I felt like a lot of this intensity from Priya all of a sudden just felt more forced than something she'd actually be doing, especially to someone she should care about. I don't know, their relationship is just super weird. Because after the final challenge, they're back to kissing and being a couple, so I don't really know what's up with them at all. But speaking of Caleb struggling in this final challenge, this is another thing I have to bring up when it comes to Caleb and what perplexes me about him. It's his strength. This seems to be quite inconsistent. Like, he has no issue whatsoever carrying an entire log with 4 people all on his shoulders, and he can drag and punch through an entire yacht, but carrying this carriage with 4 people during a race is too difficult. And he also seems super weak against MacArthur's dog, Booger, as Booger effortlessly dragged Caleb into the water. Like, is Caleb actually strong or not? It's based on convenience whether or not he'll be able to pull off something that's pretty much superhuman, or if he'll actually struggle like a normal teenager. And fits of superhuman strength and ability are not uncommon in Total Drama, but with Caleb it all seems to be just all over the place. Speaking of all over the place, I've already stated it, but Caleb's whole personality. The guy doesn't have one yet at the same time he's manipulative, romantic, way too loyal, and vengeful. None of it ever feels consistent with his character either, and it all feels like separate versions of Caleb being stitched together throughout the season. Some of it is cohesive and some of it just isn't. And it was in my review video where I stated that some of Caleb's character makes sense when you see it from a certain perspective. Caleb has been called basic and boring inside of the show, and to top it off, nobody in the cast actually cares about him whatsoever, so that kind of all ties together to show that there's really nothing to Caleb at all, but that doesn't seem like an intentional decision to me. I don't think someone or some people would put this much effort into giving a character an entire season worth of redemption story to just make the character deemed basic and void of keeping relationships with other cast members. At least to me that seems to be something more unintentional, but who really knows what the intentions of the writers were? All I know is that Caleb is a perplexing character. And some of you will agree, some of you will disagree. I'm sure Caleb has a ton of fans out there. I'm just not one of them, and I think I've been able to explain why. He's just a perplexing character to me that I'm still trying to make sense of, but at the end of the day, he didn't win the season, and that's kind of all that matters to me. If you have made it to the end of this video, thank you very much for doing so. It means a lot to me. Comment down below what you think of Caleb and just anything to do with the Total Drama reboot. Also comment out what else you'd like to see me talk about on this channel. Like the video, subscribe for more videos, and yeah, thank you for watching.